This episode had it all. Revenge, vengeance, humanity, from the Seraphites getting slaughtered to the council deciding what was going to be Abby's fate. So much going on. And I'm going to be breaking down themes, characters, going scene by scene, so by the end, we could get to what's really going on a deep level in this episode. Let's get into it. The episode opens up with Tommy going to see Joel's body, cleaning him up. Sad scene, seeing his daughter's watch, and there's only one line of dialogue in this whole scene.
Give Sarah my love.
Heartbreaking, man. Like, this really reminds us, and this is something I love about the show, is Tommy being more involved in the story, because we don't really get to see Tommy's grief with Sarah in the video game. And so now his brother and his niece, they're both gone, and he's just in complete grieving mode at this moment. And in case you forgot, that watch was the gift that Sarah gave Joel the day the world ended, and she had gotten it fixed for his birthday. And as we saw, it's broken now, so it's like, this is over. That symbolism's deadly, man. Come on. Like, this episode really just opens up with the after effects of what Abby did, and I like how we were able to sit with that as an audience, and like, we really see, I mean, the terror here is real. I mean, what's wild there, she's legitimately hallucinating. Like, she sees Abby. That's wild. But there's also a level of irony here because, you know, the absolute foundation of this season is due to what happened in a hospital when Joel took everybody out, and then Ellie wakes up in a hospital. I find that to be an interesting parallel. And then later on throughout the episode, Ellie wants to act like she's okay, but after seeing that, I don't believe her. And even though throughout this whole episode we don't see her really affected by what happened with Abby again in this episode, I feel like she's gonna have a complete breakdown at some point coming up in one of these episodes for sure. I don't think we're done with that. And for this episode, I actually skipped the intro, but look what they changed for the intro. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? That's cruel. That's cruel and unusual punishment. And if you love deep dives like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I make videos like this every week. So it fast forwards 3 months later, and we get this little scene here with Tommy and Jesse. No dialogue exchanged, but they're having this moment together. And I'm not necessarily sure where this is going to go. Once again, this is a new dynamic that wasn't in the game, so I don't know what's going to happen here. But later on, we see that Jesse has replaced Joel in the council. And so I don't know if there's going to be this Jesse kind of taking a leadership position in the town. Just like they built up a relationship with Dina and Joel, it seems like maybe there's going to be a relationship with Jesse and Tommy in this show, which would be pretty cool.
When I got home, he was on the porch, and I should have talked to him, but I didn't.
Do you regret that?
Yeah, of course. Your final moment with someone doesn't define your whole time with them.
It shouldn't, but it often does.
All right, now with the therapist, it seems her function in the show so far has been revealing the inner nature of the characters as a therapist does, which is really interesting. One of my critiques about this season so far has been the hand-holding nature of it compared to the game, where the game kind of just made you sit with things and figure things out and all that, where the show seems to be way more straightforward in walking you through things, and the therapist kind of seems to be there for that purpose, so that we know what the characters are feeling and walking through their inner lives. Instead of it being shown to us, it's kind of being told to us, which is kind of interesting. But with this scene specifically, we find out later that the therapist thinks Ellie's lying, so then it leaves us to wonder, well, what exactly is she lying about? So at least they're throwing that twist in there, because yeah, it's clear to see that Ellie is lying here just to get out of the hospital. She's doing whatever she gotta do, whatever she gotta say to get out of the hospital, because she wants her revenge. She wants her revenge 100%. That's her only motivation. And we see that later in the episode. Like, she gets right into boxing again with Jesse, and she's trying to, you know, she goes right to Tommy to figure out how to get to Abby and all of that. It's her primary goal. And so yeah, I am curious about what she's lying to the therapist about. I have an idea because I have played the game, but they're changing things with the show, so who knows. I do like seeing this scene right here with Ellie, because I like to be able to see the full range of emotions going on here with grief. Like, I don't want to see her just being angry. I want to see her being sad. I want to see her being in denial, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like we really get that in this episode. If you like these videos, I would love for you to join our foster fam community in the Patreon. You get ad-free versions of these videos, bonus videos. The link for that will be in the description. Go ahead and check it out. No pressure though. So in this episode, we're starting to really dive into Ellie and Dina's relationship, and I love the way they're going about it. One of the biggest changes of the games is, like I said, Dina having a relationship with Joel, and so now she also feels this need to get revenge, and it's not just in support of Ellie, which I like. It makes her more independent, gives her her own motivation, and I really like that. I think you do see how much Dina really cares about Ellie in here, as far as she told no one else the information about Abby before telling Ellie, and then she's the one that shows up at Ellie's door at the end to be like, yeah, we're gonna go. Also, I love how they made her character the knowledgeable one about what to bring on the trip and everything they would need to survive. Like, I really love what they're doing with Dina's character. But in this conversation, when Dina does reveal that she does have information on who killed Joel, like, the tension here was just high. I was worried this episode was going to be a little bit boring, because from the previews it just seemed like it was going to be this in-between period of Joel dying and when they finally go to Seattle, which it was. But they added some really cool parts, like what's coming up with the council meeting. I really like that. And then they really made the writing great and characterization, like I was just talking about with Dina, that really fleshed out the episode. And we got to really sit with all these characters in their grief of what happened to not just Joel, but the town, which was another great change to me, having the horde attack the town, because it just makes Jackson feel like a real community, especially in the town hall that they did. I really like that. I just feel like on a deeper level, it shows how these actions people are taking individually, they don't just affect each other. They're affecting a whole lot of people.
He'd be halfway to Seattle to save my life. But when we lost people, no, it would just break him like it was his fault. I saw that time and time again, and don't talk to me like I didn't know him. He was my brother.
So in this scene, Ellie and Dina approach Tommy about, hey, let's go find this Abby person. But, you know, he's a leader of the town, so he's like, we got to take it to the council. And I really like this tension within Tommy's character himself, where he clearly wants to go do something, but he knows he has this responsibility to everybody. And so he has to weigh those, right? And he chooses to go with being the leader of the town and doing what's right with that. I also like this dynamic right here between him and Ellie, where, you know, there's this thing where it's not just when someone passes away, but it's like sometimes you feel like your relationship with someone is the most important relationship, and you forget, you know what I'm saying, all the other relationships this person has. And that's kind of what Tommy's pointing out. He's like, hey, this is my brother. Like, you can't be acting like I don't know him, kind of thing. And once again, it just shows how many people cared about Joel, right? So we are introduced to the Seraphites here, and how they introduced them was really, really interesting. And I can't tell if I like it or not. I'm actually going to make a separate video to talk about this, so there's no spoilers or anything, but I actually have a lot to say about this. That video is going to be up on the Patreon. But yeah, I got a lot to say about this. But for now, I'll just say we're introduced to them and we see how their fate turns out later. And man, that was a crazy scene, but we'll get to that later. But in this scene, you know, we see the dad hand his daughter, I'm assuming, the hammer and talking about protecting her and all that. And we see how that just doesn't turn out well later. But once again, playing on that theme of just humanity and survival. And, you know, it's ruthless out here in this post-apocalyptic world. But it's not even just post-apocalyptic. It's this power dynamics and human nature and survival and what it could bring out in people, and it could bring out the worst. Now we have Ellie working out with Jesse here. She brings up the fact that she knows he's on the board now, and she wants him to back her to send the people out to go execute Abby. And just like Tommy, he seems to have this responsibility to the town, right? And he's not putting his relationship with Ellie first, which is really interesting. Jesse's character is really interesting. And it's interesting because I just don't know where it's going to go. His character growth in arc seems to be way different than the game, which is cool because, to be honest, he didn't have much. So I'm glad they're fleshing him out as a character too, because I always like Jesse as a character. So I want to see where that goes. I'm pretty sure he voted no in the meeting, but I guess we'll find out next week. But leave your prediction. Do you think that Jesse voted yes or voted no to send people out to go get Abby? So I brought this up earlier, but in this scene with the town hall, it was cool to me because we got to see all these different perspectives and how Jackson's an actual town with a lot of people and there's different perspectives and all of that. And I really liked that. It was awesome.
Forgive and be forgiven. No grudges, no revenge. And I'm not even a Christian. I've always seen the wisdom in that. That's what separates us from the raiders and the murderers, our capacity for mercy.
Probably the most important piece of dialogue in this episode, if I'm being honest, because he's absolutely right. But that idea is really at the core of Ellie's journey throughout this whole entire show. What separates her from Abby? What separates Abby from Joel, right? Like, they're all so much more alike than different, which gets explored throughout the rest of the show. And so, yeah, that piece of dialogue was amazing.
They came into our house. They took one of ours. My God, somebody shoots your brother. You want to take the locks off your doors?
Now, I get what they're doing here with the tension of Ellie not liking this person, him saying something bigoted earlier, and now you have this conflict because he's like the one person standing up for her to do what she wants, right? But what I like here is that he's giving a speech on not forgiving somebody, and Ellie never forgives him. And he doesn't seem to have a problem with it. And if he did, he'd be a hypocrite. But nah, Ellie doesn't forgive him. And I liked that. I did not want his actions to be minimized. And just because he stood up for her, Ellie's just like, yeah, like whatever, we're cool. I'm glad that's not how it ended. I really like that complicated dynamic there.
I normally don't write things down because I normally don't think before I talk, which has gotten me in trouble before. And it's cost me in ways that sometimes couldn't be undone.
Conspiracy time. I don't know if she wrote that letter. I really don't, because she was reading it and she wasn't confident in what she was saying. It didn't sound like things she would say. And just like the therapist said, she's a liar and like she's trying to say and do whatever she needs to do to get what she wants to get done. But I don't know. It was just the way that she was reading it. It was like she was reading a script, not just saying the things she wrote down. It was weird to me. I don't know. But if she did write it, like I said, she ain't believing the words she says. She's not believing it at all.
The vote is 8-3. The proposal is rejected.
See, the way Jesse was looking right there, he definitely voted no. Definitely voted no. And he probably just doesn't want Ellie to die or other people to die. He's probably traumatized by what happened to Joel because he's the one that had to go in there and drag him out. You know what I'm saying?
So you think she might have learned that behavior from him? Turns out nurture can only do this much. The rest is nature. If she's on a path, it's not one that Joel put her on. No. I think they were walking side by side from the very start.
Listen, she said walking side by the very start. And at the start of this episode, they took Joel away from walking side by side with her in the intro. But no, once again, love this dialogue. This was deep. And it really has me thinking, because I always felt like playing the game and all that Ellie was learning from Joel and repeating his mistakes. But it's really interesting that she's essentially saying, nah, like they're just two peas in a pod, right? They're the same. I mean, we don't really get to see Ellie before she meets Joel. So I'm not necessarily sure how, as an audience, we could come to the same conclusion as her because we don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what y'all think about that. Do you think she's kind of repeating the behaviors that she saw in Joel, or do you think that's also just her personality and they're just two very similar people? So I talked about this scene earlier when Dina shows up to help Ellie figure out how to get to Seattle. But what I didn't mention is this clearly goes to show that Dina's been preparing for the 3 months since Ellie got in the hospital, which I didn't even make that connection. Like, it shows that she's been doing her research. She's been preparing, and this vengeance, revenge, whatever, means just as much to her as it does to Ellie. Ellie visits Joel's grave on their way to Seattle before they leave. And, she never really got to say goodbye. This is her first time really being able to do that. But also, please leave below what this is. I'm not getting the connection here. I don't know what those are or what that represents. So Ellie and Dina getting full-on flirty here, but Dina pretty much says that she's back with Jesse, but she has this line of dialogue, which was really interesting.
Does it ever strike you as sad?
Jesse?
Yeah. Has he ever told you why? No, but I think deep inside that's just how he is. At least I hope that's why.
Why would you hope that?
Well, because if it's not that, then it's me.
Now, obviously, It could be a million different reasons why she's sad, but I think that happens sometimes. Like we internalize things and we think it's our fault when it could be a million different other reasons. But on a story level, I like this piece of dialogue because once again, it goes to show that they're putting so much effort into Dina and Jesse's characters and making them full characters. And we're kind of getting a look at, it seems like Jesse's sad all the time, which I think there is something behind that. I don't think it's Dina. And I'm curious as to what that reveal is going to be. So we get the scene here and I can't show it obviously, but let's talk about it. I mean, it really shows that Wolf is just, they just do what they do and they're cruel and unusual, right? But as these dynamics get fleshed out between Wolf and the Seraphites, this gets so much more complicated, so just wait for that. But right now we're seeing Ellie and Dina realize like Wolf is not to be messed with. And also it's like, how cruel can these people be with how they killed Joel, with how they killed these people? Like, I know they're now even filled with more anger and purpose in their vengeance, but I wonder if this scares them at all. Then Ellie and Dina have a line of dialogue about the Wolf group being small, but then the end of the episode shows us different. So yeah, what an episode that just talks about so much about humanity and revenge and vengeance, and deepens the character dynamics between Ellie and Jesse and Dina, and Ellie and Dina and Tommy and Jesse. Like, it was such an episode of characterization. I love it. Like I said, if you like these breakdowns, I drop them every week, so go ahead and subscribe and also become part of our community on the Foster Fam through the Patreon, so we could talk about these episodes even more together. And so next week, I'll see y'all.